God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, and leads me beside still waters. God restores my soul and leads me in right paths for the sake of God's name. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God my whole life long. We are still celebrating the story of the resurrection. And this particular gospel reading is in that vein, talking about resurrection, about new life. Only in this case, it's not Jesus's, but our own. As Christ says that he came not only so that we might have life, but so that we might have it abundantly. This comes from the Gospel according to John, the 10th chapter, verses 1 through 10. Very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again, Jesus said to them, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved, and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came so that they may have life and have it abundantly. Loves us just the way we are, and who loves us too much to let us stay that way. Will you pray with me? May the words of my mouth, may the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, for you are our strength, our salvation, our good shepherd. Amen. This Sunday is sometimes called Good Shepherd Sunday. That is not an official holy day that you will find on a liturgical calendar, but we do hear in all of this morning's lectionary texts the metaphor of God as the Good Shepherd, or of Christ as the Good Shepherd who watches over the sheep. Often we talk about God as a shepherd, as Christ as a shepherd, in the sense that God brings back the sheep who have wandered. God goes looking for those sheep who have gone astray. Sheep, it seems, are always getting themselves into trouble. They don't seem to know any better. But this morning's gospel reading, it highlights another important job of the shepherd. Sometimes the shepherd's job is not so much about bringing the sheep back as it is about getting the sheep off their butts and getting them moving in the first place. I have this cartoon hanging on my office door. It's a simple two-frame cartoon. In the first frame, see, Jesus has his arm around the man who's smiling. He says, "Where you see one set of footprints, that is where I carried you." In the second frame, Jesus is pointing off into the distance, and Jesus says, "That long groove is where I dragged you, kicking and screaming." It's a funny cartoon, but that's not why it hangs on my office door. I hung that cartoon on my door because I am that man in that picture with Jesus. And I wanted to have a constant reminder of what Christ has done for me. See, there was a time in my life, a time of which I am not particularly proud, and so I don't talk about it often. But there was a time in my life where I needed God to come along and drag me from where I was to where I needed to be. So this morning I want to tell you that story of how Jesus dragged me kicking and screaming out of my insulated and isolated existence and into abundant life. In my early 20s, I fell into a pretty serious depression. And consequently, I withdrew from life. I withdrew completely. I dropped out of college. I stopped spending time with my friends, with my family. I spent all of my time watching TV alone, or playing video games alone, or getting high alone, or just lying in bed alone. I was no longer living. I was merely existing. You know what I mean when I say that? I mean, I was alive, but I wasn't really living. A couple of years of living this way, and I hit a string of bad luck, which came in the form of car accidents. In the span of 1 year, I got rear-ended by a car on a busy street. My car was sideswiped as it was sitting empty in a Walmart parking lot. And then I got T-boned as I was going through an intersection. And then I myself rear-ended a semi on another busy street, all in the space of 1 year. And during one of my increasingly rare phone calls home, my mother suggested, "Well, maybe God is trying to tell you something." Now, at the time, if you had asked me what I thought of God, I would have said to you, "I don't believe in God, and besides that, I am mad at Him." At the time, I didn't buy what my mom was trying to tell me, but it did get me thinking. Maybe I need to do something different. Maybe it's time to change the way that I had been living, or more accurately, to change the way I had been avoiding living my life. And eventually, things began to change. Eventually, and only with God's help, did I come back to the world of the living. In fact, it was through God's direct intervention in my life, something I consider miraculous. But that might be another story for another time. I thank God for my string of car accidents. I thank God for the trouble that I got into that helped me to reconsider the choices that I had been making. I thank God every day for the not-so-gentle push away from the stagnant life that I had been living. I thank God every day for yanking me out of that comfortable sheepfold, the walls that I had built around myself. I thank God every day for pulling me, kicking and screaming, through the gate, away from barely existing and toward abundant living. This not-so-gentle shove out of the sheepfold, it happens in today's gospel reading. Although I doubt you heard any mention of being shoved through the gate in our scripture reading. Let me explain to you what I'm talking about. Jesus is trying to help the people understand who he is. And so he tells them the parable of the Good Shepherd. At night, the shepherd brings his sheep into the sheepfold. Now, a sheepfold is an enclosure. It's surrounded by walls so that the sheep are protected from wolves and from thieves. In fact, in the ancient world, these walls would have been fairly tall walls made out of stone. And inside the sheepfold, the sheep are able to cuddle up next to one another for warmth. So inside the sheepfold, the sheep are comfortable. The sheep are safe. But when the morning comes, Jesus says that the shepherd calls his own by name and leads them out. That's the English translation. The shepherd calls his own by name and leads them out. Because the sheep, you see, they can't spend their entire lives in the sheepfold. No matter how safe and warm and comfortable it might be, there's no food in there after all. There's not clean water. I mean, the sheep, they might be comfortable and safe in the sheepfold, but they have to follow the shepherd out of the fold if they are going to find sustenance, if they are going to find life. And Jesus' choice of words here, that the shepherd calls his own sheep out by name and leads them out, it is unfortunately lost in translation. Because in the translation of the Bible we use, it says he leads them out. It says when he has brought out all that are his own. It turns out that the Greek word that is being translated as brought out is a little bit stronger than the English translation would suggest. It is the exact same Greek word that is used every time that Jesus casts out a demon. Casts out a demon. It's the same Greek word that is used when Jesus makes that whip and he chases all of the animals and all of the money changers out of the temple. Right? Every other place where this word occurs in the gospel, Jesus is pushing, pulling, throwing, yanking, casting out. But in the story about the shepherd and the sheep, the translators, for whatever reason, decided that a nice, safe translation was better. The shepherd is simply bringing his sheep out of the fold. Now perhaps the sheep really do just come prancing merrily out of the sheepfold as soon as they hear the voice of the shepherd. Maybe all he has to do is open up the door and they all come out. But then again, maybe not. After all, it's comfortable in there, it's safe, it's warm. And of course, Jesus is not talking about real sheep, right? This is a parable. Jesus is talking about us. He's talking about you and me. And we certainly do, human beings. We have a tendency to want to stay in the places where we feel safe. In the places where we have gotten comfortable. In our routines. In our habits. We avoid taking risks or trying new things. We don't want to leave the security of the sheepfold, even though all the things that give us life might be waiting just outside it. And that is why sometimes the Good Shepherd has to drag us, kicking and screaming, out of the sheepfold. Sometimes the shepherd uses that rod, that staff, not to fight off the wolves and the lions, but to prod us along a little bit, so that we can leave behind old ways of living that aren't really living. So that we can start to get out of those habits and routines that are not leading us to abundant life. You gotta watch me. I spent several years of my life avoiding relationships with other people because I didn't want to take the risk of getting hurt. I stayed in my home all alone, wasting away hours because it felt safe. In the words of Pink Floyd, I had become comfortably numb. I wasn't living. I merely existed. Until one day my mom suggested that God was trying to tell me something, and I started listening for what God was trying to tell me. I started listening for my shepherd's voice. And looking back now, I realize that she was right. As Jesus said, I came so that you might have life and so that you might have it abundantly. The Good Shepherd has given me abundant life, even if it did take 4 car accidents to get my attention. This, sisters and brothers, this is the message of Easter. Life cannot be conquered. It cannot be conquered by death, nor sin, nor by the powers of darkness. Life cannot be conquered. Life happens fully and intensely and eternally. The cross is a reminder of just how far God is prepared to go in order to offer us abundant life. And the resurrection is a reminder that nothing can prevent God's life-giving grace. And yet, sisters and brothers, while life cannot be conquered, it can be delayed. It can be muddled through without purpose and without engagement. It is possible for us to live without really living. When we retreat to the safety and comfort of our own personal sheepfolds, whatever that might be, whatever that might look like for you, when we refuse to participate in the fullness of life, then we are ignoring this wonderful gift, this offer that our God, our Good Shepherd, has given us. Of course, staying in the sheepfold, it is easier. It's less demanding. It doesn't require change. It doesn't require risk. But easy does not mean enjoyable, and safe does not mean satisfying, and less demanding often also means less fulfilling. Existing, it is not the same thing as living. We will not find the abundant life that Christ offers us inside the sheepfolds, because the abundance of that life, it can't fit inside walls. It cannot fit inside a safe, comfortable enclosure. Christ drives us out of the sheepfold so that our lives have the opportunity to expand, to get bigger, so that we can grow and we can experience God's limitless abundance and life's infinite possibilities. During this season of Easter, join God in that expansive life that is found in resurrection life. Listen for the voice of the Good Shepherd as he calls you by name, calling you out of complacency, out of old habits and routines and into newness of life. And give Christ the chance to cast you out of your sheepfold so that you might find the fullness of a life lived in the abundance of God. Christ came not just so that we can have life, not just so that we can live, but we can live life to its fullest, so that we can experience life abundantly. I'll leave you with a poem by Rumi, a 13th century Sufi mystic who wrote, "With passion pray, with passion work, with passion make love, with passion eat and drink and dance and play. Why would you want to look like a dead fish in this ocean of God?"